Hello, and today I'm very pleased to be joined by Sally. So, Sally Baker, that is. And Sally is a senior therapist with over 25 years of experience. And we have spoken to her quite a while ago. And she's written a book all about resilience. It's called The Getting of Resilience. And resilience comes up time and time again working with people with healthcare conditions, particularly in the rare and chronic health area. And I thought it would be a really good idea to invite Sally back again, looking about how we can build more resilience into our day-to-day life, and in particular around health anxiety issues. So welcome again, Sally.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So where do we want to start when we start
Mm.
talking about resilience?
Well, we can talk about what resilience isn't. That's a good place to begin because there's lots of misconceptions of what resilience is. So, resilience isn't about being massively, continually positive all of the time. And that whole kind of cliche of resilience is about bouncing back. That doesn't really cover it either. Um, it's much more subtle than that, and it's much more useful than people might imagine. And it can be built, it can be learnt as an adult, even if it wasn't developed as a child. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you're saying it's not about staying positive. And I think we can all put on that front, but
Yes,
that can almost come at more of a cost by putting on that front than actually dropping the front.
absolutely. It's exhausting being positive all of the time when you're feeling fearful, anxious, and not very well. It's a huge burden to also put up this toxic positivity. It feels that it's sapping and it adds to the exhaustion levels. But it's about being a level of resilience is about being pragmatic. It's about, you know, staying in the present moment protects us from ruminative thinking about the past or catastrophic thinking about the future. If you can stay in the present moment of what can I deal with now? What am I in control of now? Versus the huge picture with health concerns as well about torturing ourselves with the idea of why or how did this, what could I have done differently? All of those ruminative thinking, they're like a vine. All of the overthinking is like a vine in your hand. The more attention you pay it, the more attention you pay the seed of these worrying thoughts, it gives it energy. It's as if you're growing a seed with water and sunlight so that eventually your thoughts become completely overwhelming. So I teach a lot of my clients to interrupt their ruminative thinking. And one of those things is to say the game show noise, which sounds slightly bizarre, but when you find yourself ruminative about your health, overthinking about your health and feeling overwhelmed, it's really good to say the game show noise. And it sounds something like this. It goes, that's an unhelpful thought, and break the thought pattern. It's not about falling into it and then finding yourself still in the same armchair 3 hours later. It's about, what, that thinking, that line of thinking, that strain of thinking doesn't help me. It just takes me further and further down into depression and uncertainty. So I'm going to interrupt it.
Yeah, that's but that's really good because that noise A interrupts it, but B, that noise is very much you've got it wrong. That's not the right path to go down.
Yeah, not helpful. Not helpful. I mean, let's not beat ourselves up with too much of a stick. It's not about getting it. Everyone's doing the best they can. It's very natural with health concerns to go down that worrying road. But if you can just allow yourself to interrupt it and not go too deeply into it, it's much better for you.
Mm.
Because when you're overwhelmed with concerns, we generate more cortisol in our body. We stress ourselves. Our blood pressure can change. Our heart rate changes. And we want to consider ourselves to be ninja warriors who have got a massive challenge. And ninja warriors needed the best sleep they can get, the best nutrition they can get. And they also really need calm, even thoughts.
Mm.
Yeah.
So with looking specifically at health anxiety, have you
Mm.
found with your patients that is it something I know it's something that could be learned. Is it something that you are born with, or do you find with your patients it's something because it's triggered off by some uncertainty with their health and it just sort of starts snowballing?
Right. Well, I believe, and from my work over the decades now around resilience and client work, resilience is developed in the crucible of the family. So if you are raised in an environment where you are loved, honored, and adored and feel taken care of and heard, you will develop natural resilience. And that's the ability to take a what am I trying to say? Take a fall, or have a failure, or not win the race, or not get the marks that you were expected to get, but find a way to go, okay, I can deal with this. I can make changes. I can have an impact on my life. And those are healthy responses to challenges when things go wrong. But if you're raised in a family where the family dynamic wasn't supportive, you didn't feel loved, honored, and adored, you felt that you were raised on shifting sands, and love was very much determined by how well you did, then it's more likely that when you are hit with a challenge, you have not got the natural resources to counter it. That's why what's great about resilience is that you can learn it as an adult later in life. That's the importance there. So it's about the family. And a health concern can certainly be the first spark of realizing. I mean, we can have quite a clear trajectory through life for quite a long time, and then something happens, and how we deal with that is about us, but often it's also how we were raised.
So when it obviously, let's say for example, you're given a diagnosis which is something that you don't want, is a bad diagnosis, and
Yeah.
obviously everybody is naturally concerned, or even if actually you're waiting for that diagnosis and there's health anxiety. So there's obviously a point where it's a common to have a health anxiety throughout your life for various things. But at what
Hmm.
point, or when would you deem it as a point as actually this is health anxiety, this is not helpful, and you've gone too far?
Good question. And the answer is when it interrupts you living your life as best as you're able to. So when it makes poor health can already make our life smaller than we would have dreamt for ourselves, hoped for ourselves. But then anxiety on top of that means that we are spending all our time and energy ruminating, and our lives that's interrupting our ability to live our lives to the best of our ability. So it's not helpful in any shape or form. And it's not as though you can't strong arm your way through to those concerns. You can't use willpower through those concerns. It's about learning to sit with the discomfort of not knowing.
Mm. And that's always
Hard.
hard, isn't it?
It's a really hard one. In fact, what you said in that intro to that question was, if you're waiting for a result. So I've worked with so many clients over the years, and they're waiting to hear life-changing news. And that period of waiting is almost harder than being given the most terrible news in a way, because even when the waiting, it's endless, it's an abstract, no one knows what's going to happen. And as soon as you've had the news and they say this is what you're facing, you can, in my work with them, I can see there's a palpable release. Like, it's bad, it's going to be a challenge, it's really difficult, but at least now I know what I'm facing.
Mm.
Half the time our imagination is so much worse.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you gave us to start off with a really good trick, the game show clanger, whatever you'd want to call it. So, what are what are there some other very simple steps that one could go like that and jog yourself? Not, I was going to say jog yourself out of it, and that's actually dismissing it, and I don't mean to do at all. But the interruption things, are there other things?
Yes. Well, briefly back to the game show noise. I've had whole families do the game show noise to the person who's really suffering with anxiety and overwhelm. And when they start talking to their families and running the same record, the families say to them, like, mom, not helpful. Or the dad says, to the daughter, not helpful. So you can share it with your relatives, and they get to be very annoying, and everyone does it. But what you've got to think about is that when you start on that route, and I've got a music box. Should I just grab my music box? So with the music box, this is just a children's music box. But when you are winding yourself up with anxiety and you're ruminating, you're overthinking, what you are in effect doing is winding up the music box. And when the music box is completely wound up, it can only play one tune and it can only do one dance. So the music box is a metaphor for, if you go down this route of overthinking and rumination, it can only end in one way. And here she is. She's just going to do one dance, always the same dance, and it's always the same tune. And and once you've started her off, she's quite hard to stop. That's why the game show noise is so useful. Another thing you can do, if you're able to just go, another thing that will certainly be happening to you when you are feeling overwhelmed, is that your breathing will become more suppressed. So all of the tools, the access to all your capabilities, everything you've ever learned is no longer available to you, because actually you're only breathing, if you were to assess your breathing out of 10, 0, no breath, and 10, breathing deeply, freely, and fully. When you're stressed and overwhelmed, your breathing can drop to a 2 or maybe a 3. So just going to a window or a door and taking 3 easy in and out breaths just connects you back to your strength and back to your own powers. And that way you can face the day and continue it in a more resourceful state. So that's a good thing as well. Just reminding yourself to breathe and checking in with your breathing. And there are some useful self-soothing. Havening is a great technique. You know, havening is very slow. You start with your hands on the top of your shoulders, and you slowly, what you're doing is you're calming your parasympathetic system, slowly stroking down and breathing. It's to set up a rhythm of breathing, because what happens is breathing can become very shallow, hyperventilate, all of those things. And havening is a way of settling the paranervous system, calming yourself down.
Well, so that by just stroking your shoulders down there, and the slower you do it, obviously, the slower you start pulling
Right,
your
breathe in at
breath.
the top, breathe in, and then breathe down. Yeah, exhale, breathe in and exhale. And just slowly, do it slowly. And it's very nice.
I'm sort of a great believer that the smallest, easiest things to do are the things that are most effective, and the ones that you're going to remember, because that's the whole point, is remembering when to activate them.
Yes. Again, it's a bit like the music box analogy. When you're in it, when you're absolutely in the pits of despair and depression and overwhelm, it's a very hard place to pull yourself up with. There's another analogy I use, that if remember those big slides in parks, and if you imagine yourself and your mental well-being at the top of the slide, there you are at the top of the slide, and you begin to recognize as you sliding down, you can feel the air, the wind rushing through your hair, and you can feel yourself going faster and all of that stuff. Well, in mental health terms, there's a whole different set of symptoms, but start to recognize how you're feeling when you're sliding down into despair. And it's important to interrupt that before you're down the bottom of the slide, because once you're down at the bottom of the slide, to get back up that slippery, slidey slope, it's really tough. So anything you can do, the breathing, anything you can do to stop yourself going down from the platform to the bottom of the slide is a good thing.
So, but why is it we all, so I've just said, it helps if you've got some really easy things to do that, you don't have to think about. They're just there. They're tools that are available. But why is it, we rationally can know we've got these fears, but we can't stop I can't say the word irrationality of them.
It's because it's held in our reptilian brain. These fears are held in the most ancient part of our brain. Back in the cavemen and women time, it would have been being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. But now this translates to health anxiety, and they're not something. Again, your analytical front brain, your grown up analytical brain can be saying, well, I know this is foolish. But your monkey brain, the oldest part of your brain, is straight into fight and flight. And that's what we want to, that's where the work gets done. That's where memory reconsolidation work gets done. It with the reptilian part of your brain. This is not something you can willpower your way through, strong arm your way through, or rationalize through. These feelings are not rational. But there are techniques that we can do to manage them. Another technique, often people, as soon as they go into fear and worry, they might use ameliorating tendencies. They might try and ameliorate their fear. So they might, some people will drink, some people will take drugs, some people will phone a friend and talk for hours. They're ameliorating behaviors that people have, and there are a myriad of them, that people will have developed to cope with and to ameliorate, minimize how bad they feel. My advice would be to actually lean into that for a while, lean into those uncomfortable emotions. And when you're leaning into the uncomfortable emotions, you're actually taking away a lot of the power of those emotions because you're experiencing them. When you're holding fear at arm's distance by doing other things, by doing ameliorating behaviors, whatever they might be, you give that fear a lot of power. What you're saying is, I can't deal with this and I'm going to push it away with all the energy I have. I'm saying, sit with it for a couple of moments and extend the time over a period of days and weeks so that you can sit with uncomfortable emotions and find that you're still okay. Take your power back.
And, you know, I suppose as we've been talking, I've been thinking about health and thinking about people having health anxiety as something as, you know, that they're sort of in a semi permanent state of it. But obviously,
Yeah,
that's not the case because lots of people have other kind of health anxiety that can happen just very quickly. I mean, similar to everybody's fine. Let's say if they have a fear of flying, they're fine until they have to get onto an aeroplane or snakes or spiders or
yeah.
and then the one that we spoke about was, and I know because I can't pronounce it because I can't remember how you told me how to pronounce it, is the fear of people being sick, which I understand is a
Well,
very popular
it's
one.
very, shows up really frequently. And the tricky word to say is emetophobia.
Emetophobia. See, it's not that tricky now. Now you've just said it to me.
Emetophobia. No. So I see lots of clients with emetophobia as young as 8. It seems to occur. But I mean, people can go through into adulthood and then they can have an initiatizing event. But you would think that the fear of vomit, emetophobia, wouldn't be so life altering. But unfortunately, it has an impact on very many aspects of one's life. How one thinks and feels about themselves. It can stop someone going to university. They're too afraid of being in different environment. It can
Gosh.
make people agoraphobic. It can make people want to never have a relationship because the idea of kissing someone, they might catch a bug. They become very watchful around food. It can lead to orthorexia and even anorexia. So it's a huge concern. Emetophobia is the king of all phobias, I think, because the threads of it impact on so many different aspects of life. And you're right, fear of flying only impacts when you need to get on an airplane.
Mm.
But this is, I won't come out to a restaurant or I won't come out to a club in case someone drinks too much and throws up, or in case they drink too much and it's not even themselves vomiting. They can't. Their fear is seeing it or being exposed to it. I know of people who have decided not to have children because they can't cope with morning sickness. And even though they desperately want to be a mother, the fear of emetophobia is so great that they delay it and delay it.
Gosh. I mean, one would never have thought it had such huge repercussions. I mean, I understand about people don't like people being sick because it's one of those things. If you see people being sick, quite often you then have a direct reaction yourself, and it can be very difficult. But the way that it obviously can go straight through one's life is actually a very good example of what true health anxiety can be.
Absolutely. And our bodies are quite noisy vessels for our brain to live in. It gurgles, our bodies gurgle and stuff. And if you are someone who suffers from emetophobia, the first thing you do when you wake up, before you even move, is sort of put yourself in an imaginary CT scanner, and you're scanning your body, and any feelings of gurgliness in their tummies, any sense of discomfort, they think, oh my goodness, am I going to be sick? And often I have clients who can barely remember the last time they were sick, but they built up the fear to be so huge. And it's really not about the vomit, because I mean, thankfully there are ways that everyone can get over this. We are born clear. It's become a construct. I've had a client, and he kept telling his dad at Heathrow Airport, I feel sick, Daddy. I think he was about 9 or 10. I feel sick, Daddy. I feel sick. And his father was an anxious traveler and kept saying to the son, just hurry along, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. And then the boy was sick in the middle of one of those massive concourses at Heathrow, all over himself and all over his luggage. And then his father was furious with him and shouted at him. So there's often a strong link between the fear of vomit and some kind of social embarrassment. In the classroom, if you were ill in the classroom and all the other children said, oh, yuck, that's disgusting, or the teacher gave you a hard time about being sick in the classroom, it's that link. And it's often women. 99.9% of the time, people who suffer from emetophobia are women, young girls and women.
Gosh, that's surprising. So, health anxiety quite often can come with, well, a lot of health issues and concerns can come with health anxiety. And one of the first things clearly is to understand how to prepare yourself, which is building resilience.
Yeah.
So one of the first things would be obviously rush out and buy your book.
Thank
Number
you.
two would be,
Great.
if we can't get to the bookshop in time, what are your top 3 tips? We've got the clangor going. We've got
Right.
the soothing of the arms. What else would you say?
Give up the why. Let go of the why. Lots of my clients torture themselves for years about, why is it me that's got MS? Why is it me that's got cancer of the brain? Why? The why. We're never going to find the why. And it becomes a fixated question, and it's not the most helpful. So how can I live my best life today with everything else that's going on with me? It's that. And to check your belief system. What does it say about me now that I've got this condition? And often the voice that comes back, the voice that says, oh, but now you're worthless, or you're less than you were, that'll be a really old voice in your head that gives a running commentary on the diagnosis you've had, that gives a running commentary on everything you say and do. That voice was also forged in the crucible of your family. So learn to have an awareness of what your inner voice is saying to you, because often people's inner voice is a toxic drip. Some people have like an inner coach that says, you're amazing, even though you've got this terrible thing happening to you, you're still incredible. Let me tell you, I never see those people, because it doesn't matter what happens in their lives. They are living their best life. I see the people with the carping, judgmental voice in their head that gives this running commentary on everything they say and do. And the first step to getting rid of it is to have an awareness of it. And then again, whose voice is that? Track it back. Find out who originated that voice that's so powerfully judging you, and then interrupt it. A lot of the things we do on autopilot don't serve us. Find out what we're running on, find out what those old programs are, and interrupt them.
Gosh, that's great advice. And it boils down to the usual thing of being kind to yourself, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Lots of self-compassion. Yes, because if we can't be kind to ourselves, then it's very hard to accept it from anyone else. We are our own worst often.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Anyway,
are.
what you have done is given, I'm sure, great hope to people who do have this health anxiety as a real problem running through their lives. That
Yeah,
and I think you started off the conversation by saying, yes, you can actively do things to really help yourself. So that's great news. So
thank
thank you so much, Sally.
you. No, thank you. Thanks, Katrina. Thank you.
Thank you.